Hi, welcome to Books and Bocadillos. My name is Mariandrea, and today I have a Read What You Own reading challenge update. I watched Farah's Read What You Own reading challenge update on her channel Bookstalgic, and I was so inspired to do an update myself because I think that is a great way to connect with other people doing this challenge. What's working, what's not working, how are we doing? Let's have a check-in. So welcome or welcome back. And I am doing the Read What You Own challenge. I started this challenge in November with everybody else who's, most people anyway. I know some people have started after November, but the initial kind of start of the event was in November. So I started then and I set my goal for 41. I have read, I should have counted, I think I posted about this yesterday. I am at 18. 18 out of 41 books read in 3 months. I'm a slow reader, so it's good. I'm going to continue on, but when I started the challenge, I did say that there were going to be book buying exceptions because that's a part of the challenge that's difficult. Is that you commit to reading a certain amount before you can purchase any new books. And I did want to read mostly from my shelves, and I didn't want to, I did want to curb my spending, but there were some exceptions. So the exceptions that I set myself was it started in November, but in December I had a reading day trip planned with some girlfriends. We went to the beach. We live near Port Isabel and South Padre Island, and we wanted to do some reading on the beach. But of course, we wanted to visit some local independent bookstores on the way to the beach. So we did stop at a few bookstores, and we did purchase some books, and so I have those books that I want to share. So that was like the first known trip that I knew I was going to be taking, and I did want to support those local bookstores because I don't get to visit them often. Even though I do live close, I don't get to go to the beach as often as I would like. And then in February, I had the Love Where You Live reading challenge here on my channel. And I wanted to support local independent bookstores, local authors. So I did make some book purchases specifically for supporting my local independent bookstores and my local authors. So that was in February, and I have my stats here. Let's see. So I have exceptions for the events. So that was one, the reading challenge, the Love Where You Live reading challenge project. So I am a mood reader, and sometimes ideas just come to mind and I want to do a project. I want to read on a certain theme or subject. And so I did want to keep flexibility for that. So I felt so inspired in February to start a reading like the Belcher's reading project. And that's going to take me a while. I don't have a date for like when that project will end, but I wanted to start with Tina because I found some Tina books and I've shared those in a previous video. So I purchased some books for reading like Tina Belcher. And I've had buddy reads that I've purchased books for. So buddy reads, book clubs, group reads, those are things that I still want to maintain a social like reading life. I love to read, but one of my favorite things about reading is connecting with other readers, hence this booktube channel. I don't get a lot of connecting in real life. So whenever there's an opportunity to connect with other people here on booktube or a book club, either locally or online, I am keen to participate, and I did want to keep that door open for me to keep active in the reading community, both locally and online. So I've purchased books for things like that. So At first, I'm going to go over the books that I've purchased since November. Really, I've only done book purchases in the months of December and February. December, when I went to that day trip to the beach, and February with the Love Where You Live reading challenge. So let's get started with a summary of books I've hauled. So in December, couple of friends and I went on this day trip, and our first stop was at the Unruly Cactus. I couldn't remember the name of that bookstore. The Unruly Cactus in Port Isabel. And I purchased this book. It's Ghosts by Edith Wharton, selected and with a preface by the author. I am really interested in reading Edith Wharton's full catalog, and don't own this one. It was on a shelf. Like, I love it when a bookstore has like shelf talk cards, or there's like someone, a bookseller within that bookstore, is recommending this book. So this book was like one of those highlighted books on the shelf that was facing with the cover out. And I love ghosts. I love a ghost story. December, I always feel like December is a great month for ghost stories. So it was December, and I thought, you know what? If I get to it, maybe I could start it around Christmas time. I didn't get to start it because I had a lot of reading to do, but one of the blurbs says, mysterious and coolly menacing stories of the supernatural. Another blurb says, these ghost stories are not mere genre, not chills and thrills. They are about the liberty of the form itself. I believe that these macabre stories were, for Edith Wharton, another way out, another departure, and yet another entry into the penetrating observations of the destructive powers of human possession, the aftermath of dispossession, and the haunting power of love. So, have you read this book? Let me know what you thought about it. So, I did purchase it because it was one of those highlighted books at that bookstore. Okay. And then I want to go by bookstore. So, at that same bookstore, I pre-ordered, or I ordered this one. They didn't have it in stock, but I knew that this was a book I wanted to order. And see, this is the store's bookmark. This book was recommended to me by Mary at Books with Tofugado. I love her channel. I know she's on a hiatus at the moment, but I love her like recommendations and reviews of horror books. And so she recently recommended this one. This is Caroma, and this is in the Spanish language by Leila Martinez. And this is by a publishing company I have never heard before. The publishing company's name is Amor de Madre. This is published in Spanish, so let me see where the publisher's at. Malaga. Okay. It's published in 2021. And Medi had great things to say about this one. Another reason why I wanted to get this one is because I have Terra Story on my nightstand, and I think that I want to read these side by side. And this is a beautiful book. The inside pages look like this. I know that Medi said that the English language, the translated work, is going to be published soon. So let me know if you pick up the English language copy when it is released. But this is a Spanish, and I'm looking forward to reading it. And like I said, I'm trying to show you by bookstore. So at the same bookstore, I purchased this one, A Walk in the Wood, Meditations on Mindfulness with a Bear Named Pooh. In the month of December, I really felt like I wanted to connect with nature. So it's just a beautiful book. Um, it says, when we're grounded and at ease, we can wander where we please. With our senses as our guide, we can let our thoughts subside and then while away the hours by the stream among the flowers. A walk in the wood, meditations on mindfulness with the bear named Pooh, offers life lessons grounded in the simple act of slowing down, observing what is around us, and being present in our lives moment by moment. The benefits of mindfulness are well recognized: greater peace of mind, less stress, and the opportunity to work through and transform thoughts, memories, and worries. It also fosters equanimity, helping us accept the changes and challenges life brings. In our frantic world, who better to guide readers through this transformative practice than a long beloved bear who has perfected the art of simply being? Just two things to do to truly be Pooh. Just be present and kind, he says, and not coincidentally, he lives in the woods. There is growing acknowledgement of the benefits of deeply experiencing nature, the calming quality of sounds like raining water, rustling leaves, the soothing properties of smells like lavender and chamomile, and emotional comfort of beautiful natural vistas and are well known. A walk in the wood is both inspiring and instructive. Simple stories with clearly stated goals and easy to follow exercises provide all the tools you'll need to take the first step and continue your journey toward a quieter, calmer way of living. So I have not started it yet, but I want to read it, and I think spring is the perfect time to start. So I probably will be starting this book soon, and maybe a little bit at a time. Okay, so that was The Unruly Cactus. And then we went on to Caroma, is another independent bookstore, and that one is on the island. And I purchased, oh wait, no, one more from that bookstore. So one more at The Unruly Cactus. This book was like in one of those sales racks that was like heavily marked down, books that were like super, super cheap. And so it was this one. Deacon King Kong, James McBride, on my TBR. I knew I wanted to read it and I hadn't purchased a copy, and it was too cheap to pass up. You know, it's one of those books that I've heard great things about. I really want to read it. I think I'm going to love it. I think I'm going to want it on my shelves. And it was a good deal. So why not, right? So then we went to Caroma, and at Caroma, I found this book, and it was also on sale and pretty affordable. And I thought this would be a good book to buddy read with my husband. And this is American Gods by Neil Gaiman. So sometimes I'll buy a book that I think my husband will like and I'll read it and then I'll pass it on, or I think he'll like it. If he really wants to read it immediately, he'll pick it up and then he'll pass it back down to me, and then we can talk about books. So I thought maybe we would both enjoy this one. This is a very popular book. I'm sure many of you watching have heard of it, read it, so I won't read the back, but if you've read it, let me know what your thoughts are. It's winner of the Hugo and Nebula Awards for Best Novel. So there's definitely high praise for this book, and I'm excited to at some point read it, but it's very, very thick. So I guess stay tuned. What else did I get at that bookstore? I also got this one at that bookstore. Oh, one book that I don't have here to share that I got at that bookstore was a copy of A Christmas Carol. So I think I've shown that in a different video. I purchased a copy of A Christmas Carol. I really liked the edition that they were selling. It was December. It was perfect. I always reread Christmas Carol. I listen to the audio, and I have a digital copy of A Christmas Carol. I have the audio of A Christmas Carol, but I didn't own a physical copy of A Christmas Carol, and I really liked the edition that they had at Caroma, so I purchased a copy. And then another book that I bought at Caroma, because they had shelf talkers, and they had this book, and it was actually a book recommended by Mark Ruffalo, and Mark Ruffalo is one of my favorite actors. So it's this book, Monarca. It's a novel by Leopoldo Gau and Eva Eriges. The back says it's a whimsical fable for all ages about Ines, a Mexican-American girl who receives a mysterious necklace from her abuela that turns her into a monarch butterfly, the fulfillment of a prophecy linking Ines's destiny to her family's legacy and the butterfly survival. Monarca is a blend of folklore, environmentalism, and magical realism that inspires us all to protect and cherish the sacred natural world around us. So I am a nature enthusiast. I'm an environmentalist at heart, and so I really loved the premise of this, and I thought it was a gorgeous book. So you can see it's beautifully illustrated. I am so looking forward to this. The artwork is gorgeous. It, so yeah, we love monarchs. I've visited the monarch sanctuary in Michoacan, and we have milkweed in our front lawn, and we love hosting the monarchs. We see a lot of monarchs come through here in about October, November, and it's just a beautiful time of year. So this we get so much joy when the monarchs come and feed and nest in our yard, and so this is just like bringing the outdoors inside because we just get so much joy from these butterflies. Okay. Um, so that was all for the books I purchased in December for that girls' trip to the beach. Then in February, I didn't purchase any books in January, but in February I did. So February, um, I signed up for an art class, and I mentioned this already, and I showed some of these books already, but so I went to my local indie bookstore that my friend owns, and I purchased a couple of Tina books to start with. So I've already shared these books. So Horse Girls, Recovering Aspiring and Devoted Writers Redefine the Iconic Bond, edited by Halima Marcus, and Bloody Valentine, a Blue Bloods book by Melissa de la Cruz. So these books I bought for reading like Tina Belcher. I've already read Bloody Valentine, and I'll be starting this one. And then while I was at this bookstore, it was before Valentine's Day, and I asked my friend, the owner of the bookstore, to hand put in my hands, hand sell a book that she thinks I would really enjoy. That is like a feel good, um, like lovey dovey Valentine's book that I can read not just on Valentine's, like in the month of February for Valentine's Day, but like if I didn't get to it in February, that I could pick it up later. And she sold me this book. She said this book she thinks I will love, so I will read it. Forget Me Not by Sue Margolis. It says between a wilting engagement and a blossoming romance, one woman's worst fears and best dreams are about to collide. Florist Abby Crompton has a knack for arranging the most exquisite bouquets for the hippest clientele. If only her personal life could run as smoothly. Although her fiance Toby proposed a month ago, Abby's still waiting for the ring. An up-and-coming lawyer, Toby's been far too busy to shop, let alone muster the energy for romance. I don't think I want to read anymore. So I will I will read it, and I'll let my friend know what I think once I finish. She knows I take my time. So it's okay. And then also from that bookstore, she had this book, and I just couldn't pass it up. It is Command the Morning by Pearl S. Buck. I love Pearl Buck, and I'd never heard of this title, seen this title. It's a vintage book, and she had it like really cheap, and I thought, let me get this vintage copy. And it smells like an old book. It smells like an old like library. It's so wonderful. This is it says Man and the Atom. Command the Morning is a story of love and determination and hope involving the most important topic of our time. It is above all a story of men and women, of scientists pursuing an idea that could benefit all mankind, of generals diverting the emphasis to the destruction of the enemy, of wives suddenly alone and unnoticed in the frenzied struggle to succeed. Command the Morning tells the moving human story behind the headlines and historic drama of the atom bomb. It catches the excitement of man's dream of harnessing a power as great as the sun itself, and it surges ahead to the momentous day that ended a war and plunged mankind into a frightening new era. Chicago Sunday Tribune said, unforgettable, one of the most memorable and rewarding reading experiences of our day. This was published in 1959. So that's that. And then, so my friend, the bookseller, she also hosted like a charity event where you could go. It was like a books and wine event, like a wine tasting. So you could go and shop for books and do some wine tasting. And the proceeds of the sales were going to go to the Driscoll Children's Hospital. So I bought a couple of books for that event. And so I got Mark Bittman, Animal Vegetable Junk, A History of Food from Sustainable to Suicidal. Sounded really interesting. Naomi Klein blurbed this saying, eating well, as Mark Bittman has taught so many of us over the years, is as much about collective health as it is about elegant recipes. In this, his most radical and profound book to date, Bittman brings his trademark wit, precision, and user-friendliness to a sweeping history of sustenance. The result is a joyful and transformational read. The story of humankind is usually told as one of technological innovation, economic influence, arrowheads and atomic bombs, settlers and stock markets, but behind it all there is an even more fundamental driver, food. In Animal Vegetable Junk, trusted food authority Mark Bittman offers a panoramic view of how the frenzy for food has driven human history to some of its most catastrophic moments. From slavery and colonialism to famine and genocide, and to our current moment wherein big food exacerbates climate change, plunders our planet, and sickens its people. Even so, Bittman refuses to concede that the battle is lost, pointing to activists, workers, and governments around the world who are choosing well-being over corporate greed and gluttony, and fighting to free society from big food's grip. Sweeping, impassioned, and ultimately full of hope, Animal Vegetable Junk reveals not only how food has shaped our past, but also how we can transform it to reclaim our future. So I'm a foodie and I'm really interested in history. I think this would be a really rewarding read. Okay. At that same event, I already talked about this book, so I won't stay long on it. But Girl on Film, I bought this for Filmtastic February. It's a graphic memoir, and I'm still reading it. And then, also for Tina Belcher, we like Tina Belcher, but I purchased this before I thought of the idea. I purchased this book for a book club read with Book Riot Wine and Romance podcast, The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich by Daya Muniz. I ended up not like reading it in time for the discussion for the podcast episode book discussion. But then I thought about reading like the Belchers, and I was starting with Tina, so I thought this was a good Tina book, so I'm saving it. This will be one I will read soon, maybe in the next month or so. Then I went to a local, also a local independent bookstore, but that specializes in children's literature, children and YA, and I purchased this book, Secret of the Moon Conch. I've already talked about it. David Bowles is a local to me author, and so is Guadalupe Garcia McCall, and I wanted to support them, so this is for the Love Where You Live challenge. And then Garbagest was in February, and I wanted to read volume 3 of Snot Girl, so I purchased this book to read for August. I didn't get to it. It was a bad weekend. Not bad week. It was a bad weekend, but it was like a busy weekend. Did not have time to read much that weekend. And lastly, so my friend that is a bookstore owner also hosts a book club, and I just picked this up today. So this is a book club book for April. So we're reading it now. The book club is meeting in April, and I picked it up today. This is The Barbizon, The Hotel That Set Women Free by Paulina Bren, and blurb by Stacy Schiff. I love Stacy Schiff's work. And Stacy Schiff wrote a stylish, charming history of a unique institution, one that allowed a woman to survive without either marrying someone or cooking him dinner. So I'm looking forward to this. And so that's it. Okay, 26 minutes. That's it. Those are all the books that I have purchased since November. I've come clean. You know why I've purchased these books. I feel good with them. I have not been to a bookstore where I'm allowing myself to just browse and like buy without having like a tangible like project or club, like reading club, book club in mind. I've been tempted, but I have not just purchased books just for the joy of it, um, the fun of it. I've just kind of kept to events and reading projects. So next, I'm going to try something new. I'm going to show you the books that I've read for the Read What You Own challenge, and we'll see if this works. Stay tuned. Okay, so I am doing this bullet spread with my Read What You Own titles. And these are the titles I've read so far. And I am going to color code them. So I have them written down, and I will be talking about these books and shading them in as I go. Okay, so for the books that I rated 5 stars, I'm going to start with The Yield. So The Yield is a book that I read in November, and it is an Australian book, and it's a multi-generational book, and I rated this book 5 stars. I've talked about it, I've raved about it on the channel, and I highly recommend. The other 5-star book I've read is Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. I read this book in December, and this is a middle grade book. It was perfect timing because part of the story takes place in December during the Christmas holiday. There's a chapter on Christmas, a couple of chapters on Christmas. So it was good timing, and I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. Then Lillian Boxfish. Lillian Boxfish Takes a Walk is a book that I buddy read with Melinda from A Web of Stories. We buddy read this in the month of December. It was a wonderful book. It's about an 80-something-year-old woman who goes on a walk in New York City, and she's reflecting on her life, past and present, and it is a beautiful story. It takes place in one day on New Year's Eve, and I will be reading it yearly. Then I have Nuestra Parte de Noche by Mariana Enriquez. So this book is a book that I had started in the month of October, but it was such a difficult book to read. It was definitely worth the effort. I almost, you could see, I almost thought not counting it, but I did. I started in October, but I had to put it down didn't finish it. I had a ways to go. So I did do the bulk of the reading in November and December. I ended up deciding to just keep it on here. Even though I did start this book in October, I did do most of the reading in November and December, and it was a 5-star book. It's definitely a book you have to have patience with, and it really helped to watch interviews with her because I got to understand the story more. I've talked about it on the channel, but if you have any questions about it, drop them in the comments. Then I also reread Olive Kitteridge. I'd read this book before, and I picked it up again in December for a reread. And I love it. This is a 5-star book. It's by Elizabeth Stout. It is wonderful. It just takes me through all the emotions. I cried. I laughed so hard. I cried reading this book. It just connected with me emotionally, and it's a 5-star read. I am looking forward to reading Olive again. I meant to read it in February, didn't get to it. So hopefully I'll get to it soon. Then Mr. Dickens and His Carol was another reread in December. And this book is by Samantha Silva. I love Samantha Silva, and I think she is a great writer. Really enjoyed this story. It's a a story that imagines the life of Charles Dickens in the days up to his publication of A Christmas Carol. And in the novel, Samantha Silva just imagines the life of Dickens and his family, and talks about what he wasn't going to publish this book, how this book came to be in the mind and life of Charles Dickens. It's a book that I've read twice now, and I can see myself reading this again. So those were the 5-star books that I have read so far in this Read What You Own challenge. My 4-star books are next. I'm going through my colored pencils here to pick out the right one. So I'm going to color my 4-star books in orange. So The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina by Sida Cordova was a 4-star book for me. Definitely enjoyed it. This is about a matriarch, Orquídea Divina. She dies at the beginning of the book. Well, she dies and she turns into a tree, and this is all not a spoiler. So it's a story about how her family comes together to solve the mystery of Orquídea Divina's life, past and present. So it's multi-generational. It is a fun read. Then I have Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. I read this book for the Guadalupe Reinas reading challenge, and I really enjoyed it. This was the Libros for Tipos group read, and I think they had just done this group read, and I came a little bit late to it, but it fit one of the prompts for the Guadalupe Reinas reading challenge, and I enjoyed it. It was a 4-star book. I had actually started this book earlier in the year, hadn't finished it, so it also fit my goal to finish books I'd already started earlier in the year. Then I have Invisible Women. This is a nonfiction book that exposes data about how women are overlooked in data collection, how data is collected for things that affect women, yet women are not taken into consideration. The needs of women are not taken into consideration in the tech and industrial sectors. Next, another 4-star book was Hammett by Maggie O'Farrell. So this was a really good book. I really, really enjoyed it. Highly, highly recommend it. So good. I don't even know what to say about it anymore. I've talked about it before. Such an interesting book. Maggie O'Farrell is a great writer, and I am still trying to read everything she has published. Then I have, okay, that was Hammett. Elena Knows. I read Elena Knows for book club, and we met in January. And, I read it in English and I read it in Spanish. I much preferred the Spanish book. I just put it in English. I didn't put two books. Just this book counts as English and Spanish. Um, I much preferred the Spanish version. So if you read in Spanish, I would go to the Spanish rather than the English. Then I have Nosotros que nos queremos tanto. Nosotros que nos queremos tanto was a book I started years ago. Hadn't finished. It for reals took me like 2 years to finish this book. I read it very, very slowly. It's the world of a few women and how they come in and out of their lives, and it's like sitting around over coffee talking about the lives of your friends, and these women just come in and out of each other's lives. So it was a good book. I'm glad I read it like slowly. It's kind of a difficult book to read in terms of there's no plot. There's nothing happening. It's just these women coming in and out of each other's lives and them talking to each other about what they've been up to. So it is a very slow read. That's probably why I took my time with it. But it was worth reading. I'm glad I read it. It also won the Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz Prize, so it fit the prompt for a Sor Juana book, a prize winner for that Guadalupe Reinas Reading Challenge this last year. And then I have January. I have the 10,000 Doors of January, which I read in the month of January by Alex Harrow. And this is a 4-star book. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I read it. I have a copy on my bookshelf. I'm keeping it. I recommend it. I thought it was a worthwhile read. Solid 4 stars. Experimental Film by Gemma Files. I read this for Filmtastic February, and I really, really enjoyed it. I actually would like to reread this book because it definitely, it's a horror book, and I find that with horror, sometimes things get better the second time around. So now that I know how it all comes together, I think I would benefit from a reread. So it's a 4-star book because it was so good. I want to reread it. Okay, we're almost done. So 3-star books are going to be colored in yellow, and Goodbye Vitamin was solid 3 stars for me. I liked it. It was a bit experimental, so I didn't know that going in. I wish I had. But, it was not what I thought it was going to be, but it was good. I'm glad I read it. I would reread Goodbye Vitamin. I might also enjoy it a second time around, but it is slow paced and it kind of is experimental in its form. It goes between imagine a commonplace book. So you're reading things from a commonplace journal, and then you're also getting present day events that are happening told from the perspective of a woman whose father is struggling with Alzheimer's disease, and she is a caregiver. So I think it's an important story. I think it's a valuable story. I'm really glad that I read it. And are there any other 3-star? Yes, 3-star books was Blackmail and Binka. So this is by Mia P. Manansala, also the author of Arsenic and Adobo, which I loved. I was expecting more from this book, so this is why it was 3 stars. Sometimes our expectations put us in a spot where maybe we don't appreciate the story as much. So I really need to work on calibrating my expectations. I was expecting more than what I got reading this book. So It may be a me issue and not a book issue. I don't want to spoil it because it is the third book in the series, so I don't want to say too much about it. But I do highly recommend Arsenic and Adobo, which is book one. And this has been the lowest rated book at 3 stars. And then 2 stars gets green. So the only 2-star book I've read so far is The Lost Equation of Isaac Severy. This book also took me years to finish because the pace was kind of slow. I didn't enjoy the characters as much. It was not what I expected. I do not want to read it again. So unlike the other books that I've rated maybe 3 stars that I said I want to reread, I've enjoyed, I'm glad I read them, this one has kind of left me feeling a little meh. Like, I don't know. If you've read it and you have thoughts, let me know. So, The Girl on the Balcony is the last one that's left here, and I don't rate memoirs because I just don't. I think a person's story is a person's story, and I don't find that I need to put a rating on it. That would be really hard. It's by Olivia Hussey, so I'm not rating it because it's a memoir, but it is a book that I put just a tiny like micro review on the community tab here on YouTube. I did enjoy it. I did. There were some things that I liked about it. The pictures were so fun to see at the end of the book. I'm really glad I read it. I really love the Romeo and Juliet movie that Olivia is Juliet in, and I think she will forever be like remembered for that role. So it's a special book, and I'm glad I read it. And that's it. Those are the books that I've read for the Read What You Own challenge. I can't wait to have this whole layout like figured out. As you can see, it's still like things are still in pencil. I haven't really decided on the font. I just kind of have this temporarily. I have a little summary of like how many books I read. So I read 3 books in November, 8 books in December. So December was my best reading month. 5 in January, 2 in February, and March and April. We'll see. I initially had hoped to be done by April, but it's not going to happen. We'll see. We'll stick with this as long as we need to. As long as there are exceptions for events and buddy reads and mood reading. Well, I mean, not necessarily mood reading, but buddy reads and group reads. Mood reading is coming to like what's on my shelf. So I'm not really spending money on books just for the mood of it. So thank you so much for watching. Happy reading. Hasta la próxima.